Welcome to the Hope and Optimism podcast series, where we highlight the people and ideas empowering international students to thrive. I'm Kwan Sigo, founder of ICOA. I'm a career coach for international students.
I am Betsy Cohen. I am the former executive director of the St. Louis Mosaic Project and the author of the book, Welcome to the USA, You're Hired, a guide for foreign-born people seeking jobs. And I'm currently a philanthropic futurist with the organization called Future Good.
My name is Dania, and I am third-year PhD student at University of Nebraska-Lincoln. I'm originally from Kashmir, Pakistan, and I'm placed here through Fulbright Scholarship Program. My area of research is in mindfulness meditation among educators.
And just like that, we have arrived at the final episode of this first season of the Hope and Optimism podcast. Betsy, Dania, co-hosting with you over the past few weeks has been such a joy for me. And today we are diving into a very important conversation: how fairness, equity, and inclusion can build stronger, more supportive communities for international students. In a world where challenges can sometimes feel overwhelming, institutions have a unique opportunity to foster spaces of care, belonging, and opportunity. It's a conversation that matters, and we are excited to explore it today. So, Bessie, who's joining us today to help lead this discussion?
We are very lucky today to be joined by our guest, Dr. LaNitra M. Berger. Dr. Berger is an award-winning scholar, educator, and social justice advocate who is dedicated to making higher education more accessible to underrepresented students. She currently serves as the Associate Professor of History and Art History and the Director of the African and African American Studies program at George Mason University. Her scholarly interests lie at the intersection of art and social activism within the African and Jewish diasporas. As the past president and board chair of NAFSA, the Association of International Educators, Dr. Berger has been instrumental in shaping policies and practices that promote inclusivity and equity in international education. She's also been extremely involved in the Fulbright programs, which is very relevant because Dania is a Fulbright scholar with us today. So I'm sure that will add some extra depth of communication in our discussion today. Dr. Berger, welcome. We are so glad that you are here today. Could you start by sharing a little bit with our audience about what inspired you to focus on fairness and inclusion within international education?
Thank you so much, Kwan, Betsy, and Dania, for inviting me to be part of this podcast series and for having this really important and relevant discussion. I'm thrilled to be here. I started my journey in international education as a young, curious person growing up in Southern California who really wanted to see what the bigger world around me was like. So I spent a lot of time thinking about how I was going to get on a plane and see other places. And I was fortunate that I was able to do that as an undergraduate at Stanford University. And I chose my major, which was international relations, on purpose because study abroad was required as one of the experiences. And I figured my parents couldn't say no if it was a requirement for the degree. So I went overseas and I went to Paris. I had an amazing experience. My life was changed. I saw so many new places. I met new people. I had a wonderful homestay family. But one thing that I noticed was that there were very few people who looked like me, who were African Americans, who were on my program or on other programs. And I felt bad in many ways that more students didn't have that life-changing experience that I had. So it stayed with me throughout my professional and educational journey that it was just crucial for more students of color to be able to have the opportunity to study abroad.
I share a similarity with you in that I did a time abroad in France when I was a student and had great cultural opportunities living with a family and learning about cross-cultural opportunities as well. As you have been in your professional career, you have worked very strongly to emphasize that importance of fairness, access, and belonging and not just for African American students, but particularly in this discussion with the international students. Can you share a bit about what your experience has been about how institutions can approach designing a program and services that are truly going to be helping that sense of belonging for international students? You might talk about what George Mason University does, what other universities do, examples that would be helpful.
Yes, I think we have to start with the fact that international students form the bedrock of what makes international education and higher education so fantastic here in the United States. We've always had universities who have engaged and brought international students to our campuses, and that's really what makes our intellectual communities thrive. So it's key that we find ways not only to attract international students, but also to help them be successful. Our higher education college campuses tend to be microcosms of broader communities. And we don't want communities that are monolithic. We want communities that are diverse and bring different people from different places with different perspectives. That's how we create a more just and peaceful world. So it makes sense that universities are also places where we can find ways to support people from those different backgrounds and help everybody to be successful together. At George Mason University, we're very lucky that we are in the greater Washington, D.C. area, which on its own is very diverse and has a very large population of people from around the world. And our campus looks very similar to that as well. We have students from many countries who come to study at all the different levels of degrees, and they are in our classes, they're on our student clubs, they're active in campus life. And if you come to our campus, which I encourage anybody who wants to visit to do, you'll see that the students tend to be very well integrated within the campus community. So it's important for us as advisors and administrators to be very mindful of ways that we can make sure that students have access to those experiences. There's nothing more disconcerting than to go travel and leave your family and travel thousands of miles away only to sit in your dorm room and feel like you can't really connect with other people on campus. And that's why advising is important, and to build what I call a web or network of advisors throughout the different college and university offices that understand what international students need. One group that I work very closely with is the Writing Center. The Writing Center at George Mason has a really great team that's very interested in helping international students succeed in the classroom. So together with them, we've written a guide on how to talk about race and ethnicity in your written work in English. And they have tutors who help students to think about how to use certain terminology and other ways that they can help students with their writing assignments. And that goes a long ways in not only in the classroom, but for helping students learn how to communicate with their peers outside of the classroom as well. We also have International Student Week, where we have a big celebration of all things international, and we really try to show appreciation for international students. And we also have the Angel Cabrera Global Center, which is a really cool part of campus that is open year-round because international students are here year-round, and allows students to take classes. They live there, they interact with faculty and advisors there, and they interact with each other. I love being at George Mason for that reason, because it's a really great place to see a lot of good work being done to support international students.
Do you see that NAFSA also recommends certain kinds of programs to help either onboarding before the international students come, or recommend certain activities that can be done on campus upon arrival?
Yes. And between the many sessions and trainings at the annual meeting and the regional meetings and NAFSA's extensive publications list, there are some really great resources through NAFSA that help new advisors and seasoned advisors think about how to deliver the highest quality program for students. I edited a book called Social Justice and International Education, Research, Practice, and Perspectives 5 years ago. And one of the chapters in that book I'm very proud of is a chapter by Crystal George Mwangi and Christina Yao and co-authors that looks at the racialization of Black international students on college campuses. And these two scholars have done a lot of really outstanding work looking at this particular issue because it connects directly to the issues of fairness and belonging. Black and African students who come as international students struggle with being racialized in an American context while also still being international students. And if you can imagine what it's like for those students to be on a campus right now where both of those types of identities are being questioned and under attack, those students really need special support and special services. So the resources that NAFSA so adeptly pulls together really help get into those details and nuances. A lot of people say, I didn't even realize that, I didn't know that. And that's what NAFSA is trying to do, is fill these knowledge gaps so that we can make sure that students with these layered identities and challenging situations are able to thrive on campus.
I know that we are seeing an increase in students from different countries from Africa and St. Louis, and the data around the country says that the opportunity for international student growth over the next decade or 2 decades will certainly highlight the opportunity for the young people from African countries coming here. But to your point, often they have to navigate multiple of these identities. And that will be interesting to see. Do you think the universities are yet addressing the fact that this may well be one of their future growth opportunities for international students?
I think some of them are, but I don't think enough are looking that far ahead into the future. I, as an academic, do a lot of research on the African continent, and I like to say that the future is African. Africa has the youngest population, it has the most entrepreneurial population, it has millions of people who are thirsty and seeking education. And that's a great combination. And that should make all universities in the United States really turn their focus and attention to thinking about what they can do to recruit and support more African students on their campuses. So I think it's critical that we think about how to recruit those students, how to find the right fit for them on our campuses, and how to make them thrive. Since, as we've been discussing, this is a very unique set of circumstances to think about how to support a student who is both racialized and an international student. But that doesn't mean that it can't be done and it can't help to create a more thriving situation for our students. So I'm really optimistic about being able to welcome more African students to the United States and to our institutions. I think there will be certainly some challenges in the near future in terms of how we do that, but we can't change the facts or the demographics that these students are smart, they're talented, and they really want to participate in education. And so that means to me that it's incumbent upon our higher education institutions to find room for them at our colleges and universities.
In St. Louis, we are seeing our 2 African organizations. We have a organization called Vitendo for Africa, and we have an African Chamber of Commerce. And they have become more involved with our international students from the African countries on campus to be another source of welcoming them into our community. I think to your earlier point, though, right now, with the different tensions for Black and Brown students on campus, it's a particularly challenging time for all of them to see themselves in the community and to feel welcomed. And I know, Dania, you had some thoughts on that topic as well. What were you thinking, Dania, when you were thinking about that?
As international student, when it comes to the topic related to people of color, I was always very much fascinated in those kind of discussions on campus. And I tried to join those discussions too. And I always appreciate that there is so much going on campus that is highlighting the issues that Black community or Black people are facing, maybe on campus or overall in America. But as someone who is considered as brown, I have felt a lot of focus on Black international students when it comes to people of color. And I didn't feel like my voice was being recognized, or maybe there is some kind of influence that was there for brown people or Asian people. I'm not specifically saying Asian people, but people of color. Of course, I always feel so fascinated by how Black community is united in making themselves recognized and highlighting their voices. And I feel the same for us, that how we as brown people can do those things. Of course, we don't have the history of those injustices or those violences that happened against black people or black community or black Americans. But I was just wondering, and this question was always in my mind, how we can raise our voices, because there is not a lot of things going on for brown people.
Danya, I really appreciate you sharing that perspective. I think it's really important that we think about that. The conversations in America about identity tend to be quite rigid compared to other places. And for a very long time, the conversation was literally black and white. And it made very little room for people of other different racial and ethnic groups to think about how they fit into the American fabric. And that it's changing, of course, but it's the primary vehicle in which we think about identity in this country. And that does make it hard for other groups. One of the things that I teach about and talk to students about is the importance of informing yourselves about social justice and cultural issues other than your own. And I think it's very important for Black students or Asian students or brown students in general to inform themselves about other people's causes. And you're a really good example of that, because you mentioned that you've studied and read about Black history and Black causes. And I'm hearing from you that it sounds like that's helped you to think more about your own particular issues. And I think it's important for every student to do that, to think about other causes that may not directly impact you, but what you can learn from that. We instill that kind of value, that concern and curiosity about other cultures and issues, because as we see now, we can't assume that an issue that affects one community will not eventually affect other communities. And we need to have an understanding and appreciation and a sense of empathy for what others are going through, not just because we might end up in that position one day as well, but because we want to help people who are struggling.
Yeah, we were thinking about that as we were talking about today, and whether there are issues that involve all the different cultures in the Mideast or India, Pakistan, or all the things that we need to learn and understand more about the histories, the cultures, and people, so we can be sensitive. So very important thoughts, and it's a big topic. I'd like to move and talk a bit about professionals and institutions that want to make steps and be more positive and take constructive actions to learn, have their faculty, the staff members be more proactive in how to have these conversations. What would you say, Dr. Berger, are some of the best practices that universities and the staffs that are there can ensure to make international students feel welcome, supported, and included throughout their journey? How do they bring the broader academic community and those that instruct them and those that guide them to be more culturally, sensitively, ethnically conscious? How can they do that?
This is a really good question, Betsy, and we're in a very unique time right now. So one of the first things I'll say is that we've all experienced a variety of emotions in the last couple of months, and also just a whiplash of different rules and rule changes and differing policies that affect our students. And in order to be successful in this environment, it is critical that we have the most up-to-date information. If the four of us think about what we might say to an international student 2 weeks ago versus what we might say today, it would be drastically different because so much has happened. And I'm saying that because I think that staying informed through the NAFSA resources is the best way to keep up to date with all of the changes that the field of advising international students is going through right now. NAFSA has Connecting Our World, which is a free weekly newsletter. It has advocacy toolkits on its website. And all of that really will help professionals navigate these very challenging times. I will also mention the book that I edited again, Social Justice and International Education, because that book, even though it's 5 years old now, I am shocked and dismayed in some ways that it's still incredibly timely and relevant. It came out in the midst of COVID, in the midst of a period of racial reckoning, in the midst of another tumultuous period in the field in terms of policy. And that's I was hoping we would leave much of that in the past and be moving forward in a different direction, but we are not. We're still very much in it. And so this book really still is one of the best resources that practitioners and scholars can use for actionable tips and resources on how to build inclusion, how to build a socially just community that supports international students, that supports cultural engagement. There, I brought together the great minds of the field who are really thinking about these issues in an innovative way. So those are the places that I would turn to because we don't know what next week is going to look like. And yet we still have students on campus who need our support. So staying informed, staying updated, and staying connected to each other are some of the best ways that we can serve our students.
Do you think the people that are serving international students are motivated to stay up on this? Do you think they're getting burnout and wear out? It's like whiplash at the moment. And if you're not close to it, you don't know. But I do think the international students are very close to it because of social media and the ways they're connected on various channels, even though I know in person is extremely important because right now, everyone's being advised not to put things in writing, not putting them in text or on their social media. But how do you keep the staff who maybe isn't quite as close to all this? How do you make them understand that this is really a tumultuous time?
It's tough because everybody in higher education is dealing with something. And when you think about the bigger arc, we've really just have been in a quote unquote post COVID moment for about a year or two where things looked more normal to us. So it hasn't been that much time since we were thrown into the last series of crises. So the burnout is real. I think that burnout is something we have to be careful of, and people feeling a sense of exhaustion and hopelessness that they as individuals won't be able to do anything to fix the situation. I'm very honest, and I tend to recommend that others be honest. When someone asks you how you're doing or what you're dealing with, you should tell them. Don't gloss it over with an I'm fine or things are okay. I think it's important for us to be honest and open about what it actually takes to bring international students to the United States and to help them thrive. It was a mystery to most people. The word SEVIS meant nothing to most people outside of our field, and now it's in the news every day. And I think it's important. It's bringing attention to all of the mechanisms underneath that make sure that international students are here and that they are safe and that we are able to support them. So I think it's important that we are transparent with people about the work that we do so that they can develop an appreciation not only for what we do on a daily basis, but for how extraordinary it is for professionals in this field to be doing their work.
I like your point about not glossing over things because they are real lives and real issues. But I think also your point is well taken that the institutions, everyone is dealing with something at the university right now because of the threats to funding for research or programs, for changes, whether it's the name of a program, the activities of a program, the underlying funding of the program, and then the double whammy for international students and the important role that international students play on campus, not only for the talent, the brains, but the economy, because the number of dollars that the export sales that we sell university education to our international community is a huge underpinning for the university's finances. And so there's both the talent aspect and the economic aspect of our international student importance. And so that's something that I think all of a sudden the universities and the broader community is waking up to how important international students are every day in the news. Definitely words like visas and all these topics are things that the general public is getting a much more awareness of right now.
Absolutely, yes. And it's just so crucial for us to remember how important it is that we are doing this work that supports not only our international students, but the learning communities across campus. Many of our classrooms have international students in them, and those are really important perspectives. So it's so crucial for each person at a university is there for a reason. And for too long, people have not understood where international students fit in. And now they're starting to. So in every crisis, there is a moment of opportunity. And the moment of opportunity that I see in this crisis is for us to elevate the work of the professionals who support international students on our campuses.
I agree. And I think that moves us to another topic, which is that sense of community, which is important for the student to be successful, but also for those that are in leadership, for building that bridge, for creating that sense of community, and then for encouraging our native born students to also encourage that sense of community. So, what strategies have you seen that work well for fostering that cross cultural understanding and mutual respect on campus among the different groups?
I'm going to lean into a lot of my individual experiences at George Mason because I have so many great colleagues who work with me to bring the students of different backgrounds together. I currently sit in my position at the intersections of African American studies and international education. Couldn't be two more newsworthy fields that I'm working in right now. But the perch that I've been in at 3 years as NAFSA president, but also at George Mason, has been that I love hearing international students say, my favorite thing to do while I was here was to go to this play or to see this movie that I never thought I would see. And I make it an effort to spend a lot of time at the Global Center. I've visited their courses that they have to help acclimate students to the university environment. And I'll never forget, I visited one of those courses a few years ago during Black History Month, and I gave just a short Black history presentation. And one of the students from Saudi Arabia came up to me and he said, I know Harriet Tubman. I think she's a hero. She's my personal hero. And I was so touched to hear this student from Saudi Arabia light up when we discussed Harriet Tubman and to say how much Harriet Tubman had influenced his life. To me, that was like the best thing you could ask for as an educator and as an international educator, to see that cross-cultural type of engagement. And it's students like that really motivate me every year to make sure that I include the international students in all of the activities that I plan for African American studies. It's such a unique opportunity to come to the United States and live in the state of Virginia within 15 miles of Washington, D.C., to have access to all of this culture and history and politics and museums. And it would be a shame if students came all this way and didn't have faculty to explain to them what they have access to. So I spend a lot of time thinking about how to connect to the international students on my campus. And as a matter of fact, this weekend, we have an outing. There is an opera based on the case of Loving versus Virginia, which legalized interracial marriage. There's a brand new opera that's debuting at George Mason Center for the Arts. And so we have a nice coalition of African American studies students, faculty, high school students, and international students, including their advisor, Michael P. Smith, who are coming with us. And we try to invite them to everything that we do, because for many of them, it's their first time at the opera. For many of them, it's the first time they've been to an arts event. For many of them, it's the first time they've had engagement on these historical issues. And so I remember the first time I went to the opera in Paris when I studied abroad in Paris. I'll never forget that experience. And that was about 30 years ago. So I've always wanted to be able to provide that type of experience to international students as well. And it's just been delightful to work with that office because we talk about different ways that we can use the arts to bring the students together and to have difficult conversations around art where they get to know each other, they break down cultural barriers. So thinking intentionally about the ways in which you can just naturally engage international students is critical in helping them to feel that this is an organic invitation and that it's not something that is artificial and that they're not really welcomed, but we want to make sure that they feel like this is for you just as much as it is for any other student.
Do you see a difference for the undergraduate versus the graduate students?
So that's a really interesting question. Many of the groups that I work with are mixed. And so sometimes I have groups that include both undergraduate and graduate students. Some of the graduate students do come with families and they're older, so they have different types of obligations. But I've found in general through my broader engagement with international students and scholars across different institutions is that they all recognize that there is this cultural element to their study. They're not just here to study engineering and then go back to their home country. They're here for cultural engagement. So I've seen just broad enthusiasm for learning about American life and culture and getting a chance to meet international American students. I think that in general, people want that experience across the board.
I want to look at the idea of what do we need in today's environment to keep hope and optimism when so many things are changing in the news with regulations, with the global situation, and then with executive orders, with legislation, with operations that are being asked of all of us. It's so important that we think about being hopeful, the things that give us optimism, such as what we've seen just recently with some of the CVIS situations being reversed as needed. So how do you see, Dr. Berger, the sense of hope and optimism? What gives you hope and optimism as you look at this community that needs so much support right now to get through a challenging time?
You're right. It's a very difficult and challenging time, and it's easy to lose hope, and it's also easy to burn out. Again, when I think about how difficult the COVID period was, it seemed like it was easy to lose hope and optimism at that time. And it was hard to really understand what was the lesson that we were supposed to bring out of that experience. But I think that having gone through that as a field collectively together gives us a point of reference for how to survive and thrive and be a community right now. We went through a lot during that period, this unprecedented COVID period where mobility stopped and many people lost their jobs. And we didn't know what was around the corner in terms of the outcomes for COVID. And we came out of it, we made it through. And I know that we will also get through this difficult time as well. Self care and a sense of purpose are crucial in difficult times. We can't glue ourselves to the news and just hit refresh on social media. That's not going to help us in the long run. We may feel better in the short run if we get a little hit of dopamine, but in the long run, it will drain our energy. So, finding ways to connect with each other and rejuvenate are critical. I know before we started recording, we talked about the NAFSA conference, and that is absolutely a place to go to recharge, to be able to see your colleagues in person, to hug each other, to commiserate, but also to find out, what are you doing? What are you doing to stay healthy and happy in these times? Those points of connection are what keep us strong as a field. I've met so many wonderful, talented, smart international educators in my career, and I would hate for any of those people to feel as though there's not a place for them in the field, either because they've lost their jobs or because they just feel like there's nothing that they can contribute in this environment. We need everybody. We need your talent and expertise. We need your enthusiasm and your passion for what we do as international educators. So I think that sense of hope and optimism comes from within, from the religious beliefs, meditative practices, exercise and enjoying nature, hobbies. And then it also comes from us as a community, wrapping ourselves around each other and making sure that no one feels isolated or left behind.
And I think that sense that some of these things that are coming from the outside are not within our own community. Our communities want and need our international colleagues, students, friends, and we need them to know that and that we together will get through these hard times. When you mentioned going to the opera, I'm an opera fan, so I particularly related to that. But I was wondering, what is it that you do to rejuvenate yourself?
I'm so glad you asked. I wasn't always the best person who was good about having hobbies. I have just been so deeply immersed in what I do as an international educator and love my colleagues who are usually also my friends that I had to really take a step back and think about what am I actually doing for me? And I have a family, I have 2 kids, and so that sometimes makes it hard to focus on your own well-being. But since I finished the NAFSA presidency, I've really tried to focus more on that. I live in a really nice neighborhood in Alexandria that has a lot of walking trails, and my daily morning walk is non-negotiable. So I love to get up in the morning and take a walk year round. So it doesn't matter how hot or cold it is, I get out and take my walk. One of my dear NAFSA colleagues have a shared love of bird watching. And so she introduced me to a bird watching app. And while I'm on my morning walks, I use the app to identify birds. And it's just such a nice way to decompress and to enjoy the beauty of nature. So I spend time outdoors. And both of my children play musical instruments. My older son plays the alto saxophone, and my younger son just started playing clarinet because I played clarinet as well. And I've forgotten, it's been a long time since I've been able to really play my own instrument. I forgot how playing an instrument just takes you into a completely different world and allows you to focus only on the beauty of the music. So I've really enjoyed playing a duet with my older son and helping my younger son enjoy clarinet. And it's just a time to just step away and focus on something that's very beautiful and fun.
If there is one idea that you would like our listeners to take with them today about advancing inclusion and hope for the international students, what would that one idea be?
That idea would be to never give up. The work that we do is so critical. It's critical for our institutions, it's critical for our communities, it's critical for our country, and it's critical for the world. And no matter what you hear in the press, no matter what you hear from our leaders, the work that we are doing to bring international students to our campuses and to foster cross-cultural engagement is what will make our society stronger, better, more just, and peaceful. So, no matter what others are saying about the work that we do, I want you to remember never to give up because this work is too important to walk away.
I love that. And I've always felt that international students are some of the most resilient people that I know. And I think your point of not giving up is going to push them to the test to keep that resilience high. I'd like to let Dania ask you a question that we got from an international student.
All right. So this question is not from a student who is not a student anymore, but they were a student before. So the question is really interesting. It is asking that as a former international student now on an H-1B visa, working in corporate America and raising a family with a high cost of living, I find myself contributing meaningfully to society, but still struggling with a constant sense of uncertainty, given that relocating to another country isn't a realistic option for us right now. How can I navigate this lack of belonging while continuing to build a thriving life in US?
Danya, thanks for elevating that really insightful and important question. When I read the question and thought through it, it sounded like that question could have also been asked by my parents, who are Americans. They're no longer living, but they grew up in the segregated South in the United States. And they worked very hard. They struggled to access education. They eventually were able to get good jobs. They bought a home, they raised a family, but they did all of that while experiencing rampant racism and discrimination in this country. And throughout my childhood, I remember them saying, "How do you love a country that doesn't love you back? How do you do that?" So I felt a lot of connection to the question because I feel like as an African American, that is very much the experience of African Americans in this country. And I'm saddened that instead of ending people having that experience by improving ourselves as a country, we're making more people have that experience, which is not a good experience. The one thing I'll say as I think about how my parents navigated that and others I know who have navigated that is that there's a real long arc towards justice in the United States. And by that, I mean that sometimes we don't always see the improvements or the benefits of our democracy right away, but they will come eventually. And it requires both a sense of patience, which can be really hard, but also trust that the democratic structures that we've built, while imperfect, are still capable of producing and allowing for social change and inclusion. So, right now, it feels very difficult. It feels hopeless for some people. It feels very frustrating. But I know that America has a promise and that even though right now we don't see it, it will be there.
Yes, I feel that. And I love the imagery of the arc and that feeling that the pendulum will move back in a more positive direction. But we have to just keep that looking out there toward the future with my futurism view as well. Dr. Berger, I want to thank you so much. This has been very insightful to draw some comparisons about our racial communities and how that intersects with our international communities and the hopes and desires we have for future success. With that, I'm going to turn the discussion back over to Kwan.
Thank you so much, Bessie, for leading this conversation. It is factual, it is relevant, and it applies to all citizens, all communities. So, thank you so much, Dr. Berger, for being here and sharing this with us. I have put together a few key takeaways and would love to hear your thoughts too if there's anything that you think we should tweak or adjust to make it more relevant to our audience. So, first of all, let's talk about what international students can do right now based on this conversation. Number one, that story about cross cultural experiences, so beautiful. So, everyone, no matter where you came from, engage in cross cultural experiences. Also, share your background and explore US culture at the same time to build mutual understanding. And number two, for international students, continue building relationships on and off campus. Connect with peers, faculty members, advisors for both academic and personal support. Don't just focus on the classroom only. And lastly, you also need to stay informed. Keep up with immigration and campus policy changes that may impact your journey. And let's turn to the university communities. What advisors can do to support international students? Number one, have the inclusive programs in place. Center fairness, access, and belonging in student services and support structures. Number two, foster campus collaboration. Build networks across departments to better understand and serve international students. And number three, encourage cross cultural learning, promote opportunities for international students and also domestic students to learn from one another. And lastly, never give up. Your work is too important to walk away. And stay current and advocate for your international students. You can stay tuned with resources from NAFSA. And don't forget to check out Dr. Berger's book on social justice and international education. So, those are my summaries. Dr. Berger, do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
I just want to say thank you to all three of you for fostering this important conversation, for the work that you do as international educators, and for hosting this podcast. You've summarized everything beautifully, and I'm just so appreciative of this opportunity.
Thank you so much for being here and sharing your journey your insights with all of us today. Now, I would like to turn to a small exercise to help us become present. And I know Dr. Berger mentioned about bird watching. That is something that I've been doing, especially this spring as well. I'm using that bird ID app, Merlin, and I love it. I believe you're talking about the same app.
Yep, I use Merlin as well. It's
Right? So good. Yes, I love to ID the sound. And when you take a picture, you can ID the picture too. That's such a lovely mindfulness activity during this springtime. Now, Dania, what about if we just stay in our room, not being able to go out anywhere? What type of activity we can do to stay present and be mindful?
So today we were talking about cultivating the sense of belongingness. So when it comes to belongingness, there is something that we can do with ourselves without thinking about or looking for the outside validation. It's all about the words that we use to ourselves. So let us begin by finding a comfortable seating position. Gently close your eyes. Allow your spine to lengthen, your shoulders to soften, and your hands to rest easily on your lap. Take a deep breath in and let go. Take another deep breath in and let go. Let your breath flow naturally without any force. With each breath, allow yourself to settle more deeply into stillness. Now think of any word that makes you smile or that makes you feel more belong to any particular place. This can be any word that has stayed with you recently. It could be a word someone said to you or something you said to someone else. Maybe this word would feel you more grounded, more authentic to yourself. Let it surface gently. Reflect about this word. Is it kind, encouraging, sharp, or maybe dismissive or discouraging? Think about a word that is kind or encouraging. Take this word and imagine that this word is going into your body. Feel that word is in your body right now. Imagine planting that word like a seed in your heart. Repeat that word in your mind. Imagine that you are watering that word like a seed in your heart garden. Continue saying your word and imagine the seed opening and growing in your heart. What does this word has become? Words are more than sound. They carry energy. They carry intention. And they have an impact on us. Some words lift us. Other words that we use within ourselves hurt us, or they leave wounds within us. Breathe in deeply and release any heaviness that those words are carrying within you. Silently say to yourself, my words carry. I choose to speak with care. I choose truth. I choose kindness. My words carry power. I choose to speak with care. I choose truth. I choose kindness. Feel the meaning in those words. Let them settle into your breath and let them be a plant in your heart garden. And when you are ready, gently open your eyes and carry with you the awareness that every word you speak has the power to heal or to harm. Use your words wisely.
Thank you, Dania. This is so comforting and relaxing. And your sharing today reminds me of the book The Art of Communicating by the Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh. And you're so right. We are all like garden, and it is our decision which seeds we want to water. And every word that come out from our mouth or other people that say something to us, it is watering seeds. So we can control what we want to happen in our lives. So select the seeds that you want to water. Such a beautiful practice. And throughout the mindfulness exercise, we can all hear siren, right? And some backgrounds from the traffic, the emergencies that happening in life. So that is so similar to our life right now. We cannot control what's outside us, but we can control our mindfulness. So thank you again, Dania. This is such a wonderful final episode of our first series. All right, so for our listeners, we would love to hear your thoughts on this initiative. We would love to know if this podcast series, Hope and Optimism, has it supported you in your work as a university advisor? Has it been helpful to you as an international student or former international students living and thriving in the US? So if you enjoyed listening, please consider leaving us a rating on Spotify or any channels that you are using right now. Your feedback is so valuable and will help us create even more meaningful resources for international students and university communities during these uncertain times. And looking ahead, we are excited to bring you a special recap episode where the three of us, me, myself, Betsy, and Danielle, will create a reflection together on the insights shared by four of our expert guests from the past four episodes. Please stay tuned for this engaging wrap-up. Don't forget to subscribe at icaway.com/subscribe and follow the conversation using hashtag #ICAWayCoaching. Thank you, Bessie and Daniel, for being such phenomenal co-hosts with me throughout this journey. Thank you, Dr. Berger, for being here and sharing your insights. Until next time, take care and stay hopeful.